I'm Elizabeth, though most people call me Liz or Lizzie. A few call me Betty, but I've never liked that one much. I grew up in what you'd call an ordinary family: mom, dad, and my older sister, Kate. Kate's 7 years older than me, which made a big difference. From as early as I can remember, our house was practically a shrine to Kate. Every wall was covered with photos of her first smile, her first steps, or her scribbled masterpieces that mom and dad treated like fine art. I was there too, but just kind of there. I got used to it, wearing Kate's hand-me-downs, playing with her old toys. It wasn't ideal, but I didn't know anything else. I learned to stay quiet and go with the flow. As time went on, the pattern held steady. Kate got new clothes. I got her old ones. She received the latest toys. I played with what she'd outgrown. But I never complained. I just existed. When I reached high school, Kate had already moved out for college on a scholarship. I thought maybe, with her gone, my parents would notice me more. But no, it was still all about Kate, her college adventures, her new boyfriend, her bright future. Then one Sunday she burst in, grinning from ear to ear. "Mom, Dad, I'm getting married," she announced, as if she'd just won an award. Mom burst into tears of joy, and Dad whooped with excitement. I just sat there, wondering if anyone realized I was in the room. Kate turned to me, her eyes sparkling. "Lizzie, you'll be my bridesmaid, right?" I forced a smile and nodded. "Sure, Kate, congratulations." As everyone hugged and laughed, I slipped out of the room. No one noticed. They never did. Kate's wedding turned into a huge production. One night, I overheard Mom and Dad whispering in the kitchen. "We'll have to take out a loan," Dad said, sounding worn. "I know," Mom sighed, "but it's Kate's big day. We can't let her down." My stomach twisted. They were going into debt for her wedding. I wanted to point out how absurd this was, but I knew better. My opinions didn't hold much weight here. The wedding was lavish, with Kate looking like a princess and my parents beaming with pride. I stood in my bridesmaid dress, feeling invisible as always. Then, after her honeymoon, Kate dropped another bombshell. "I've decided to be a housewife," she announced at Sunday dinner. "Jack makes enough for both of us." I watched my parents try to hide their concern behind forced smiles. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Mom said, "if it makes you happy." I wanted to scream. They'd taken on debt for her wedding, and now she wasn't even going to work. But as usual, I kept quiet. Soon enough, Kate was pregnant, with twins. Mom and Dad were overjoyed, spending every free moment doting on Kate and preparing for the babies. Then came the next idea. "We should help them buy a house," Mom suggested one night. "They'll need the space with 2 babies." Dad nodded. "We could make a down payment on that nice place nearby." I couldn't stay silent anymore. "Are you serious?" I blurted out. "You're already in debt from the wedding, and now you want to buy them a house." They looked at me, almost surprised, like they'd forgotten I was there. "Elizabeth," Mom said, her tone sharp, "this is what family does. We help each other." The twins were born a few months later, 2 little boys, as adorable as could be. Mom and Dad spent every moment at Kate's new house, cooing over the babies. Meanwhile, I was finishing high school, thinking about college but wondering how I'd pay for it. Finally, one night, I worked up the courage to ask, "Mom, Dad, I'd been looking at colleges." "That's nice, dear," Mom said, not glancing up from the photo album she was making of the twins. I took a deep breath. I was wondering, could you help me with tuition? They exchanged that look, the one that meant they'd rather discuss anything else. Dad cleared his throat. "Well, sweetie, we'd love to, but with the loan for Kate's wedding and helping with the house, we can cover half," Mom interrupted, as if that was generous. "But you'll need to figure out the rest on your own." I felt like I'd been punched. Half. After everything they'd done for Kate, half was all they could offer me. But I knew it was pointless to argue. "Okay," I said softly, "thanks." As I turned to walk back to my room, I heard them resume chatting about the twins' latest adorable antics. Closing my door, I leaned against it and for the first time in years, let myself cry. I ended up enrolling in a local community college, not my dream, but the only option I could afford. To cover the gap, I took a part-time job at a nearby diner. Balancing classes and waiting tables was exhausting. Most nights, I came home dead on my feet, dreaming only of collapsing into bed. But even that small comfort was often snatched away. It started one Friday evening. I'd just finished a grueling shift and was looking forward to face-planting into my pillow when I walked in to find Kate in the living room, the twins crawling around her feet. "Oh, Lizzie," she exclaimed. "Thank God you're here. I'm at my wit's end with these two. Can you watch them for a bit? Jack and I haven't had a date night in ages." Before I could respond, she'd slipped out the door, leaving me with two screaming toddlers. "What the hell?" I muttered, staring down at my nephews. Don't get me wrong, I love the little terrors, but this wasn't what I'd signed up for. Mom wandered in from the kitchen. "Your sister's exhausted, honey. This is what family does. Besides, it'll be good practice for when you have your own kids." Kids? I was barely keeping my head above water as it was. This became the new normal. Every weekend, without fail, Kate would drop off the twins and vanish. Sometimes for errands, other times to grab dinner or catch a movie with Jack. And every weekend, I ended up as the unasked babysitter. One Saturday, after a week from hell with midterms, I had enough. Kate had just breezed out the door, leaving the twins mid-tantrum. I turned to Mom and Dad, my voice shaky. "This isn't fair. I'm exhausted. I work, I study, and now I'm expected to give up my weekends too." Dad didn't even look up from his newspaper. "Lizzie, your sister needs the help. You should be glad to do it." "But what about what I need?" I protested. "I'm running myself ragged here." Mom sighed. "Elizabeth, don't be selfish. Kate has two kids. You don't know how hard that is." I gave up. It was clear they weren't going to listen. So I resigned myself to my new reality. Classes during the week, work in the evenings, and unpaid babysitting on weekends. A personal life? That was a joke. The closest thing I had to a social life was small talk with customers at the diner. Dates? Forget it. Between work, school, and watching the twins, I barely had time to shower, let alone meet someone. I was at my breaking point. The constant juggling of school, work, and forced babysitting left me drained, physically, mentally, and emotionally. I needed a real break, a genuine escape from everything and everyone. So one evening, I made an announcement. "Mom, Dad, I'm taking a few days off and going to the beach." The response surprised me. For once, they actually seemed supportive. "That's wonderful, Lizzie," Mom said, looking genuinely happy. "Where are you staying?" I told them about a modest motel I'd found online right by the ocean. Nothing fancy, but it was all I could afford. Dad nodded approvingly. "Good for you, kiddo. You deserve a break." I nearly did a double take. Were they actually acknowledging my need for rest? The day finally arrived. I packed my bag, hopped on a bus, and felt the weight lifting from my shoulders with every mile that passed. When I arrived at the coast, I could hardly believe my luck. The motel was small and a bit rundown, but the view of the ocean was breathtaking. I dropped my bag in the room and headed straight for the beach, inhaling the salty air. For the first time in months, I felt like I could truly breathe. I treated myself to lunch at a little seaside cafe, savoring each bite. No screaming kids, no assignments, no customers. Just me, my thoughts, and the calming sound of the waves. As the sun began to set, I returned to the motel, ready for a night of peaceful solitude. But as I approached my room, I heard familiar voices. "Surprise, Lizzie." I froze. There, outside the room next to mine, were Mom and Kate, with the twins running in circles around them. "What? What are you doing here?" I stammered, my heart sinking. "We couldn't let you be all alone on vacation," Mom chirped. "We thought we'd surprise you. We're right next door." They'd booked one of the nicer rooms, I noticed, while I was in the budget option. Before I could fully process what was happening, Kate was already pushing the twins toward me. "The boys have been dying to see the ocean. You don't mind watching them for a bit, do you?" "I want to take a walk on the beach. And I need to run to the store," Mom added. "We'll be back soon." Just like that, they disappeared, leaving me with two hyperactive 3-year-olds tugging at my hands. What followed was nothing short of chaos. The twins tore through my tiny room like miniature tornadoes, ripping curtains, breaking glasses, and somehow managing to clog the toilet with apples. I ended up shelling out money I didn't have for repairs and to call a plumber. By the end of the weekend, I was more exhausted than ever. The final straw came when Kate, oblivious, sighed and complained about how tired she was from all the traveling. I finally lost it. The argument that erupted was epic. I yelled, Mom cried, Kate sulked, and the twins screamed in the background. That night, I packed my bags, determined to leave, and caught the first bus home in the morning. As the coastline slipped away, a shift happened inside me. This couldn't go on. Something had to change. When I dragged myself through the front door, exhaustion heavy on my shoulders, Dad barely looked up from the TV. I trudged to my room. mind swirling with emotions and vague plans. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I was halfway through packing when I heard the front door slam. Elizabeth, where are you? Mom's voice rang through the house, sharp and irritated. She stormed into my room, face flushed with anger. I can't believe you just left us there. Do you know how hard it was to manage the twins on our own? I bit back the urge to remind her that I'd been managing the twins alone countless times before. Instead, I just kept packing. Mom's eyes narrowed. What are you doing? I'm leaving, I replied, voice steady. I'm moving out. I need my own life. Their reactions were swift and predictable. How could you be so selfish? Mom cried. After everything we've done for you. Dad's face went red. You ungrateful girl. Have you thought about your sister? Who's going to help her with the twins? Something snapped inside me. My sister. What about me? When has anyone in this family ever thought about what I need? Mom gasped, and I continued. Kate has a husband. Let him help with the kids. I need to focus on my own life. Dad glared. If you walk out that door, don't expect us to keep paying for your college. You'll be on your own. I looked at them, these people who were supposed to love and support me, and realized they were strangers. Fine, I said, zipping up my suitcase. I'd rather be on my own than live like this. No life of my own, just constant demands and screaming kids. I'm done. I pushed past them, dragging my suitcase downstairs. They followed, shouting, but I tuned them out. As I reached the door, Mom made one last attempt. If you leave now, don't bother coming back. I paused, my hand on the doorknob, then opened the door without looking back. The next few weeks were a blur. I crashed on a friend's couch while searching for a more permanent place. Eventually, I connected with a girl from my study group who needed a roommate. We found a tiny apartment we could just barely afford between the two of us. With my parents cutting me off, I picked up more shifts at the diner, working almost full-time on top of my classes. There were nights I thought I wouldn't make it, when exhaustion was so overwhelming I could barely think. But for the first time, I felt free. No one made demands on my time. No one guilted me into babysitting or expected me to put their needs before my own. The apartment was small, my bed just a mattress on the floor, but it was mine. I threw myself into my studies with a determination I didn't know I had. Every all-nighter, every extra shift, every missed event, it was all for my future. 2 years flew by, and on graduation day, I sat in the auditorium, scanning the crowd. A small part of me hoped to see a familiar face, Mom, Dad, even Kate, but the seats I reserved remained empty. Life after college felt like stepping into a whole new world. I landed a job at a marketing firm, and for the first time in years I had a steady income that wasn't just scraping by. I rented my own apartment, nothing fancy, but all mine, no roommates, no family drama. Just peace and quiet, and it was glorious. I started doing all the things I'd missed. Going on dates, making new friends, even having a few short-lived relationships. It was fun to be young and carefree for once. My parents and I kept in touch, barely. We talked maybe once a month, stilted conversations filled with awkward silences and thinly veiled disapproval. They were still sore about me moving out, and I wasn't in a rush to mend fences. Then came my 25th birthday. I had plans with friends, dinner and drinks, nothing wild. But a week before, Mom called. Elizabeth, she said, her voice oddly cheerful, we want you to come over for your birthday. The whole family will be there. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Walking into my parents' house was like stepping back in time. Kate and her husband were there, the twins, now 7, running around like little tornadoes, aunts, uncles, and cousins mingling and smiling. Happy birthday, Lizzie, they chorused as I walked in. I put on a smile, accepting the hugs and well wishes. Then Mom handed me an envelope with a flourish. This is from all of us, she said, beaming. As I opened the envelope, my stomach sank. Inside was a ticket to a beach resort. We're all going, Dad announced proudly. A big family vacation. We've paid for everything. I froze. A family vacation, with the twins. It was my ruined beach shirt all over again. I opened my mouth to refuse, but Mom squeezed my arm, whispering harshly, don't you dare make a scene, not in front of everyone. So, I forced a smile and thanked them, all while screaming internally. The party wound down, relatives trickled out, and finally, it was just us. Me, Mom, Dad, Kate, and her family. I couldn't hold it in any longer. I'm not going, I said flatly. What? Kate gasped. But it's a family trip. Exactly, I replied. And I'm not interested in spending my vacation babysitting your kids again. Kate burst into tears. You don't love us at all, do you? You don't care about your nephews. I care about them just fine, I snapped. But if I wanted kids, I'd have my own. The argument went in circles. Mom called me ungrateful, Dad looked disappointed, and Kate kept crying, all trying to guilt and pressure me into giving in. Finally, exhausted, I said, Fine, I'll go. They all looked relieved, like they'd won some great victory. But they had no idea what I had in mind. The day of departure arrived, and I found myself at the airport surrounded by my overly cheerful family. Kate and her husband were practically bouncing with excitement, already making plans for all the alone time they'd have while I watched the twins. You'll have so much fun with Aunt Lizzie, Kate told the boys, winking at me. She'll take you to the beach, build sandcastles, maybe even go snorkeling. As we approached the check-in counter, I made my move. Oh, I need to use the restroom, I said, feigning discomfort. You guys go ahead and check in. I'll meet you at the gate. They nodded, distracted by luggage and excited children. I watched them get in line, then turned and walked in the opposite direction. My heart pounded as I approached a different check-in counter. I handed over my passport and the ticket I'd bought weeks ago for a flight to a small, peaceful island resort. Once through security, I found a quiet corner and pulled out my phone. With shaking hands, I typed a message to Mom. I'm not coming with you. I'm going on my own vacation. Enjoy your trip. I hit send and immediately turned off my phone, avoiding the inevitable fallout. When I settled into my seat on the plane, I turned my phone back on briefly. It immediately exploded with notifications, missed calls, voicemails, angry texts. I listened to one voicemail from Mom, her voice shrill and furious. Elizabeth Morgan, how dare you abandon your family like this? You've ruined everything. Your sister is in tears, her husband is furious. They were counting on you to watch the boys. You're the most selfish, ungrateful. As the plane took off, I sipped my champagne and gazed out the window. Yes, I felt a pang of guilt, but overwhelmingly, I felt free, like I could finally breathe for the first time in as long as I could remember. I was going on a trip that was just for me. No obligations, no babysitting, no family drama. Just me, the beach, and whatever I decided to do. When I arrived on the small tropical island, the warm breeze greeted me as if to say, Welcome to freedom. I checked into my resort, a modest but charming place right on the beach. Out of curiosity, I turned my phone back on, and it instantly flooded with hundreds of messages, missed calls, and voicemails. I scrolled through a few with a mix of amusement and trepidation. How could you do this to us? From Mom. You ruined everything. From Kate. You're so selfish. Elizabeth. From Dad. I couldn't help but smile. For once, I'd chosen myself over their demands. I turned the phone off again and locked it in the hotel safe. For the next week, I was unreachable, and what a week it was. I lounged on the beach, read books uninterrupted, went snorkeling, and even tried surfing. I chatted with other vacationers, went on a few casual dates, and stayed out as late as I wanted. No schedule, no responsibilities, no screaming kids. Just me and the rhythm of the waves. Too soon, it was time to head home. I returned to my apartment tanned, rested, and more centered than I felt in years. But the real world was quick to intrude on my newfound peace. The very next day, there was a pounding on my door. I opened it to find Mom and Kate, faces red with anger. How dare you? Mom screeched, barging in without invitation. Do you have any idea what you've done? Kate wasn't far behind. You ruined our entire vacation. The boys were devastated. They launched into a tirade, voices overlapping as they hurled accusations and insults. I was selfish, ungrateful, a terrible daughter and sister. I owed them for the ticket they'd bought for the childcare I hadn't provided. I let them rant for a few minutes, their words washing over me without sticking. Finally, I spoke, calm but firm. That's enough. I don't owe you anything. Not money, not childcare, not my time. I'm an adult, and I get to make my own choices. Mom opened her mouth to argue, but I held up a hand. I'm not discussing this further. Please leave. When you're ready to treat me with respect and have a calm conversation, we can talk. Until then, it's best we don't communicate. They stared, shocked into silence, then stormed out with a few choice words. As the door slammed behind them, I let out a long breath. It hadn't been easy, but it felt right. Over the next few weeks, I made some big changes. I found a new apartment in a different part of town and moved without giving my family my address. I threw myself into my work and picked up new hobbies, painting, yoga, even learning a new language. There were moments of doubt and pangs of guilt, but every time I came home to my peaceful apartment, made plans without worrying about babysitting, or pursued a new interest just for me, I knew I'd made the right choice. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe someday my family and I will find a way to have a healthy relationship, maybe not. But I do know this. I'll face whatever comes on my own terms, standing tall and unapologetic in the life I've chosen for myself.